Passage A is adapted from the autobiography A Peculiar Treasure by Edna Ferber. Passage B is adapted from the memoir Pull Me Up, a memoir by Dan Berry. The printing shop and press room were separated from the front office only by a doorway, and the door never was closed. There were the type forms and tables, the linotype machine, a new and fearsome invention to me, the small press, the big newspaper press, the boilerplate, the trays of type, all the paraphernalia that goes to make up the heart of a small town newspaper. The front room is its head, but without the back room, it could not function or even live. The linotype and the small press went all day, for there the advertising was set up and printed, as well as handbills, programs, all the odds and ends classified as job printing. Mac, who ruled this domain, was the perfect example of the fictional printer. He had come in years before, his brown hair curled over a mild brow. His limp shirt seemed perennial. But his eye was infallible, and few, if any, uh, shradless and etoines marred the fair sequence of Mac's copy. His voice was soft, gentle, drawling, but he was boss of the print shop from the cat to the linotype operator. Mac seldom talked, but sometimes he appeared in the front office, a drooping figure with a piece of news by which he had come in some devious way. Standing at the side of the city editor's desk, he would deliver himself of this information, looking mild and limply romantic. It always proved to be a bombshell. Such was the makeup of the Appleton, Wisconsin Daily Crescent office. In the past 30 years, all sorts of ex-newspapermen, from Richard Harding Davis to Vincent Sheen and John Gunther, have written about the lure of the reporter's life, the smell of printer's ink, the adventure of reporting. It all sounds slightly sentimental and silly, but it's true, or it was at least in my newspaper experience. To this day, I can't smell the scent of white paper, wet ink, oil, hot lead, mucilage, and cats that goes to make up the peculiar odor of any newspaper plant, be it Appleton, Wisconsin, or Cairo, Egypt, that I don't get a pang of nostalgia for the old reporting days. I was once a newspaper man myself, has come to be a fun phrase. Practically everyone seems to have been or have wanted to be a newspaper reporter. Okay. It can reasonably be inferred that Passage is narrated from the point of view of someone who once worked in the newspaper business, recently started a career in the newspaper business, is outside the newspaper business, and is evaluating the inner workings of various new offices, is outside the newspaper business, and longs to be a reporter. So this means that to this day, I can't smell the scent of white paper and cats that goes to him. So this person once worked in the newspaper business, right? Is no longer working, but used to work. Based on Passage, the narrator believes that compared to what goes on in the front office, what goes on in the printing shop and press room is more tedious, equally critical, equally chaotic, less regulated. So the front room is its head, but without the back room, it could not function or even live, right? So it is equally important. So it is equally critical. The narrator of Passage A most nearly characterizes Mac as both innately talented and professionally incompetent, innately talented and professionally inexperienced, temperamentally unimposing and professionally inexperienced, temperamentally unimposing and professionally invaluable. Because see, he was an unimposing figure, right? When you looked at him, he didn't give the image of somebody who who cut a dashing figure, but when he did come up with something that he thought was important, it was always a bombshell. So he was professionally astute. According to the narrator of Passage A, Mac would occasionally appear in the front office in order to set up and print the advertising, supervise the linotype operator, chastise the reporters for having too many errors, share newsworthy information with the city editor. Right? That's what he did when he came into the front office. Passage B, ink. The building smelled of ink, spilled and bled. It was a tart and chemical smell, the kind that weaves into the fabric of your clothes and then under your skin. The kind that comes home with you, sits with you at the dinner table, tells you constantly what it is you do. Car mechanics know their smell, as do fishermen and hairstylists, nurses and short order cooks. You're a man who chases halibut, a woman who perms hair. You smell of it. I waded into that invisible veil of ink, inhaled it deeply, allowed it to wash over me. It smelled of words and phrases, rants and ideas, sports scores and felony arrests, announcements of marriages and notices of death. Maybe the chemical like aroma was inducing hallucination, but I doubted it. In a squat concrete building, no different from all the others in a drab Connecticut industrial park, I was experiencing a moment of revelation, an epiphany really at the age of 25. This is what I do. Pinned like a manifesto to a bulletin board in the center of this ink perfumed building was a typewritten note from my new employer announcing that on this day, October 1783, I would begin working as a reporter for a daily newspaper. The note formalized my calling in life with a splash of perspective that would stay with me forever. Dan is a former intern at the Daily News in New York and a graduate assistant for the journalism department at New York University. His writing has appeared in the Daily News, the New York Times, and the Rocky Mountain News. Soon it will appear in trash cans throughout North Central Connecticut. Please make him feel relevant. Reading the note, I thought, I'm home. Finding my way had not been easy. The internship at the Daily News had ended. The graduate degree from NYU had been shoved in a drawer, and I had returned to living beside the sump pump in my parents' basement. I spent my days splitting sod for a lawn and sprinkling company alongside Eddie, who had taken to calling me professor, and my nights typing out professional love letters to the New London Day, the Absbury Park Press, and Poughkeepsie Journal, the Stamford Advocate, the Anywhere Clarion Bugle, Star Record Sentinel, and every other Northeastern newspaper that I had never read. What is the epiphany the narrator of Passage B experienced at the age of 25? He couldn't live in his parents' basement forever. His dream of becoming a reporter had finally been realized. He would rather write news stories than work for a lawn company. His success as a reporter would depend on his work ethic. So the epiphany was this. This is what I do. The fact that he had been employed as a reporter. So that was the epiphany. Based on Passage B, the note that the narrator's employer wrote can best be described as mildly sarcastic, overtly solemn, blatantly apologetic, particularly optimistic. So there's a hint of sarcasm here, right? Because when he says it will appear in trash cans throughout North Central Connecticut, he's trying to say that, once the newspaper is read, people just discard it. So, so I wouldn't say that it's overtly solemn. It's not very serious. It's not apologetic. Yeah, so I will go with mild sarcasm. The last sentence of passage B mainly serves to indicate that the narrator, so he was just applying everywhere, had disdain for most Northeastern newspapers, was familiar with the newspapers published around the area, was desperate to find a news writing job, had extensive news writing experience. He was desperate, right? Because he was writing to every paper in the Northeast, even papers he had never heard about. Okay, compared to the description of the newspaper office in A, the description of the newspaper office in B provides less information about the types of machines used to print the newspaper, outside appearance of the office building, number of people who work in the office, types of stories being written and printed. So it's F because the first passage gets into detail about, all of these machines that are used, right, to print the newspaper, while the second one doesn't get into that. Compared to passage A, the style of passage B is more strongly characterized by its use of technical jargon, dialogue, formal diction, figurative language. I don't think it's technical jargon or dialogue. Is it more formal diction? I wouldn't say that, right? It's written in a very personal tone, so I don't think it's formal diction. I think it's more figurative language, like the way he describes his commitment to his work and the fact that he was completely immersed in it, right? Yeah. Uh, yeah, so it's more figurative for sure than the first one. Okay. Based on the passages, who would be most likely to associate the smell of ink with pleasant memories? I would say both, right? Both of them seem to, because the first one definitely, and even the second one, right? When he says that it gets under your skin, he's not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, right? He's kind of saying that this was something that he wanted to do, and this was something that he finally found. So both narrators would associate it with pleasant memories. Okay, so this was the reading section. Let's do the first question. AGDJB, AGDJB, and sixth is FCFDH. FCFDH.